Hey, Launch family. In today's episode, we're talking with Michael Walker. No relation to Jeff. He's the co-founder of Modern Musician, which is a 7-figure business helping musicians build their audience and get their music out into the world. We cover a lot in this interview, from Michael's incredible story to creating offers to using the latest AI technology to build your business. There's really something for everyone in this episode, and I know you're going to love it. But speaking of AI, if you haven't yet, I want you to go to daretolaunchshow.com/AI and grab our AI playbook. This is the ultimate guide to unleashing the power of AI in your business. It is absolutely free. It's jam-packed with proven shortcuts, strategies, and prompts to help you launch your business faster. So go to daretolaunchshow.com/AI and pick up your own AI playbook. Now here's today's Dare to Launch with Michael Walker.
If you can imagine if your favorite artist of all time reached out to you and said that they wanted to bring you on tour with them to open on their next tour, how much of a dream come true that was. Anyone can distribute their music to the internet and to potentially billions of people. Like, you don't want to compete based on price, but you want to compete based on value. So it's a song about Spider-Man swinging through the night, strumming chords on his guitar. What if you actually did have 5 minutes left to live? It seems like for a lot of people, that's the moment where a moment of clarity really happens. The thing that helped me gain traction and really break through was when I started to connect personally.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to today's episode. My name is Chris, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, folks.
He's a actually lifelong musician, and he started practicing from his drummer's garage and playing local shows, all the way to working with Grammy Award-winning producers and garnering over 17 million views on YouTube, releasing a #2 alternative rock single or rock album on iTunes, touring and performing live for hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. And he's also started a business called Modern Musician, which trains aspiring musicians how to form their artist identity, develop a thriving fan base, and start multiplying their revenue so that they can have a lasting career in the music industry. He's a father of 3 beautiful kids with an amazing wife, and I wanted to welcome you to Dare to Launch, Michael Walker.
Thanks for having me.
Excited.
Yeah, I had to do it. I couldn't stop. I got the heck in.
So excited to have you here. This is cool. You are a piano player, and you always have that in your videos and what you do, your whole setup. I remember seeing you do that at our at various conferences.
Every once in a while, it's great because I can really impress, especially people. I mean, you guys are both musical in nature, so you wouldn't be as impressed. But I tell you, when I bust out a little bit of a keyboard and I'll be like, Chris and Jeff, the 2 coolest guys around. It's like a little ditty like that, and most people are like, oh my gosh, music. It's not very easy to impress musicians with something like that, but it's fun having this on Zoom recordings, be able to play.
It definitely underscores any important point that you make, right? It elevates it, I think. So I'm sure there'll be some strategic musical placements throughout today's episode. But maybe we could start actually with just I'd love to dive into your musical career a little bit, and because you started out with your band Paradise Fears, and went from living, I think you said, in your cars, right, for a while, and then all the way to selling tens of thousands of albums and reaching #2 on iTunes alternative charts in 6 months. How did you do that? Why don't we start with that?
Yeah, so it wasn't every single night that we were living in our car, but there's a few nights that we camped out in our van in Walmart parking lots, and we stayed in a lot of Motel 6s, and in some neighborhoods that I'm surprised that we didn't get robbed. But at that point that we were sleeping in our vans some nights, it was right around the time that we decided to go all in on this music career. I had grown up in a small town called Vermillion, South Dakota, a very small local music scene. Decided out of high school that we wanted to pursue our band, that I had started in high school with a few classmates. And you can imagine in Vermillion, South Dakota, there's not necessarily a huge thriving music scene to do music full time. And I remember being really excited when we booked our first tour. We hustled on MySpace back then. It was how you would book the shows. You'd reach out to other venues that were on MySpace and see if you could play. And when you're a musician, like one of the first things that you think that you should do is go on tour. Like you're a real musician if you're going on tour. And so we were telling all of our friends and family, like, oh, we're going on our first tour. It's going to be awesome. And, we realized the hard way that it's not enough to just book the shows, but you actually have to figure out how to get people to come out to the shows as well. And I remember that first tour that we did, some of the venues were literally just the bartender in the back of the room. Sometimes we would lug up our gear 3 flights of stairs to play for literally nobody. And that was the time that we were, living in our van, sleeping at Walmart parking lots. Sometimes, well, pretty much every day, what we would eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner was I would get a big stack of flour tortillas and a jar of peanut butter. And peanut butter tortillas was like the go-to staple. That what took us from that point to, in about 6 months, we had landed a tour with one of our favorite bands, sold 24,000 CDs, and really kind of jump-started our whole career, was this idea that we've later come to call tour hacking. It's funny that the name tour hacking actually came from, I don't know if you knew this, but when I first started Modern Musician and I first started to teach, some of the lessons that we had learned, I was out at a PLF Live event, and it was over lunch with a member there. And gosh, I wish I remember her name. It was like 7 years ago, I think. And we had lunch together, and we used to call it tour hustling. We used to call it tour hustling because that was just, what we called the thing that we did. And she's like, you know what do you call it? Tour hacking. Like, it sounds a little bit better than tour hustling. Hustling sort of implies that you're like, I don't know, you're hustling, like it's maybe more manipulative. Like hacking is a little bit, a little bit of a different thing. Although you could argue that hacking also has some connotations to it. But the point is, we had this idea because we were big fans of bands like All Time Low and Mayday Parade and this pop punk kind of scene. And I remember going out to a show and waiting in line, and there was a huge line of fans that were waiting on the sidewalk to go into the show. And we were just like, man, I wish that we could play shows like this. And like, how do we find and connect with people that would like come out to our shows? We were standing in line. We're like, there's people waiting here for 4 hours ahead of the show, and they're fans of All Time Low. Maybe they would like our music too. What if we just, walk up to these people and introduce ourselves and share some of our music? And maybe if they like it, maybe they'd be interested in coming to our shows too. So we decided to try that out. And I remember doing this was incredibly challenging for me because I was a super shy, awkward kid in high school. And I remember having some panic attacks when I was like, when I had to give presentations to the in the classroom. And so the kind of thing didn't come naturally to me at all. I remember shaking and stuttering as I walked up to people. But what I found was that this strategy worked incredibly well. People there were really receptive. They like our music wasn't great back then. It was pretty bad in hindsight. like we actually took it offline because that first album, The Secret of Dropping Out, was just not even close to the newer material. But what I realized that it wasn't really about the quality of the music. It was about the connection that we were making with those people and building a relationship. And they were like the 1 in 1,000 true fans that actually shows up to a concert, spent money on a ticket, standing in line for the show. They were like the best people to talk to. So it worked so well that we decided we wanted to go all in on that strategy. There were 6 of us in the band. So we split up into groups of 2, and we started following different tours around the country for about 6.5 months. And literally all we did every day was walk up to people waiting in lines for shows and introduce ourselves, share some of our music. And we had a backpack full of CDs. So if they liked it, then we would offer them a CD. And if they got one, we would sign it for them. We would take a picture, and that made us look cool to like everyone else in the line that was seeing what was happening. We sold 24,000 CDs in about 6.5 months. And because of that, one of the bands that we were tour hacking on was called All Time Low. and they were our favorite band of all time. We grew up listening to their music. Pretty sure the first song that we ever covered as a band was called "Dear Maria, Count Me In" by All Time Low. And they heard about what we were doing, and they gave us the opportunity to open for them on their next tour. I don't know if anyone listening to this right now is a musician, but if you can imagine if your favorite artist of all time reached out to you and said that they wanted to bring you on tour with them to open on their next tour, how much of a dream come true that was for us. And it totally validated our dreams. And that was a huge, breakthrough for us as a band. And so when I look back at my life too, I mean, that was definitely one of the top 3 experiences that I went through that transformed me. Like, it helped me overcome the fear of rejection and get really, comfortable, and not have to be the right word, but a lot better at making offers and connecting with people and just having face-to-face conversations. And what I found later on has been a narrative, like a theme, that's a thread that's connected different stages of my life, has been about that connection, about like talking with people, having conversations, about understanding them. And yeah, I think that was definitely one of the top 3 transformations I went through in my life, was through connecting with so many people face to face.
So, Michael, I just have to ask, there's a lot to unpack there, and I love how you wrapped it up with just really going from someone who was shy, who felt awkward going up to people, very much introverted, to learning how to have those conversations, and through those conversations, getting to know your audience, getting to know your, in our world, the avatar, gaining confidence in your voice and your ability to speak, and how transformational that was. So we've got a lot to unpack there. And I just have to know, All Time Low was your favorite band growing up. After you went on tour with them, were they still your favorite band?
Luckily, I mean, this isn't always the case. So it's commonly told, like, don't never meet your heroes. But I'm grateful to say that they were even more humble, like in person, and just they really kind of took us under their wing. They're really cool guys. So, I mean, I will say, like, our style of music has evolved over time. Like, I would say when I was in high school, I was very pop, angsty emo, pop punk, pop rock. So like my taste has evolved a little bit since then, just in terms of like the types of music I listen to. But in terms of All Time Low and their music and just them as people, I'm just even more of a fan of them now than I was back then.
Cool.
That's good to hear.
Glad to hear that. Glad to hear that.
I love that your story, even just starting with like, we were out of our cars and having to make the peanut butter filled taco shells, essentially, right? Tortillas.
Peanut butter tortillas. Yeah. Sometimes we throw in a banana in there, and that was when we were really taking things.
Right. Well, but and then like the focus on learning your avatar, but also on, I think a lot of bands, for example, will focus on like, oh, I got to have great music, but they don't necessarily focus on all the other things. And to me, that's very similar to a lot of entrepreneurs too, isn't it? In that they, so many entrepreneurs have that story of being hungry, right? And like having to suffer through those long periods of not having abundance. And so much of the time they focus on, I need a product. I need my product. I need my course. I need to get this thing perfect before I go out. But you focused on the relationship that you were building with people. And that is such a huge transition for a business owner, for someone like yourself, for an artist to make. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to make that shift too. Could you talk a little bit about like, what did you learn about, building relationships with your audience, and how that really makes a difference in terms of becoming more successful as a business owner or a musician like that?
I mean, there's this concept that I invented called the seed launch, that was really all about this takeaway that I came up with myself. You can tell because my last name is Walker. So, I mean, I would assume a lot of people here listening to this have understand this and have heard about the seed launch, Jeff.
Michael, you can never assume too much, because there could be people that just found this podcast. But yes, Michael has been a student on our campus in my universe for a number of years, and you're going to hear about the absolutely ridiculous success, the crazy business he built in Modern Musician. But one of the concepts, one of the core concepts that the core is the product launch formula. It's a way to launch a new course or a membership or a coaching program or almost anything. And one of the main types of launches is called a seed launch. So it's something that Michael has used very effectively.
Yeah, and I would say the seed launch, that whole concept, that strategy is really the main core of why tour hacking works so well. Is it's built on that same foundation of connection and interaction and building a relationship. You had phases of my life in multiple different stages where like you're describing, Chris, like I've had a big idea, I've had an idea for the product or the thing, and it didn't quite land. Like it didn't connect. It didn't work in and of itself. And in some cases, like I remember having a launch that I tried to do for a course. This is back way in the day. I was going to create a how to play piano course.
Wasn't that your first launch ever that you did? Was that? Yeah.
It was my first launch ever, and it was before I'd really mastered the principles and the lessons that you teach in PLF and Launch Club. But this was my attempt to kind of transition from when I was starting my family and I was gone most of the year on tour. We had built up a successful career for about 10 years, and we had eventually gotten to a point that we released an album that hit #2 on iTunes. We had about 24 million streams on Spotify, and we built a career that we worked really hard to do that, and we all felt like proud of what we built. A lot of my ego and my identity, like it was all in the band. It was all I thought about. It was all I cared about. And when I started my family, and I was looking to transition, because I was gone most of the year, I wasn't really living a lifestyle that was conducive to me being the kind of father, the kind of husband that I really wanted to be. So one of my first attempts to transition was creating a course, and I called it Piano Rockstar. And it was kind of cool. Looking back, I stumbled upon some old videos back then, and I was like, wow, like there's some interesting technological things I was doing with the keyboard. But a perfect example, like I geeked out to figure out all this cool overhead, like the keys would light up when I played. And when I did my first launch, I made 0 sales, and I thought that it was going to be more than that. We had built up, a bit of an audience around what we were doing, and I clearly I didn't market in the right way for the course, and a lot of it came down to the fact that I wasn't connecting with people personally. And and to be fair too, like this was totally separate from everything I did. I didn't even actually reach out to our existing audience. I ran ads. I think I had like 200 or 300 people on my email list, and I thought surely somebody out of these 200 new people that just discovered me would pay me $1,000 for a piano course. And I hadn't really talked to them at all. And I created this really cool geeky course, and I just kind of made it available. I was like, hey, this thing is here. Like, you want it? And made 0 sales. And it was hard. Like it was really challenging. Like at that point, I was about to be a dad. I knew that I had to figure this stuff out, and it clearly wasn't working. And that was around the time, I remember my parents-in-law, my mother-in-law in particular was, she just wanted what was best for her daughter. So I understand, but there's a lot of that sentiment around like, maybe it's time to get a real job. That was really kind of like the challenge or the struggle or the pain that I went through, that sort of, emerged in this beautiful blessing of everything that's come out of it with Modern Musician and with discovering, your whole community here. And to come back to like the point here, the thing that helped me gain traction and really break through was when I started to connect personally with the musicians and with my audience, and actually starting to understand the avatar. I thought that I understood people because I was a musician, but I think I had the curse of knowledge, I didn't actually understand how to communicate what it was that I was doing, and to actually have a relationship where they knew me and they understood the value and what I was offering. And so it did all come back to connecting with people and having conversations that helped me to actually dial in the offer and not the other way around.
And from what I remember, because I remember you being around our community at that point of struggle, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you transition your whole business model from like piano to like, I'm going to work with bands individually or something like that, just to get to know your people and do that? Like, how did that transition go, and how did you build that relationship? Like, how did you get it?
That's another interesting one. I mean, I wish I could remember the exact person, or I could give him a high five, because this was a conversation that completely changed my life. And it was it was at the end of a PLF Live event. This was back when I haven't I don't drink alcohol anymore. It's been like a couple of years. Not anything against drinking alcohol. It's just a personal thing. But at the end of the event at the hotel, there was a bar, and there was a bunch of people hanging out. And it was funny because I'd attended the event, and the whole time I was focused on creating a launch based around Piano Rockstar and based around the piano course. In fact, this was, I think, the first time I met Jeff. We had connected at one of your live events. You did this amazing process where on stage you would kind of like channel people's heroes' journeys. And someone still has the recording, I'm sure, like that, of like the audio from that conversation. But I remember that moment changed my life. And it was funny because it was all about the journey for like Piano Rockstar. That's what the story was about. Just so happens that, that's my story in general. And that's the story that's also, come out with Modern Musician and really this other direction. But the actual decision to transition from focusing on playing piano to helping artists with their career came from a conversation at the end of the event, after I had the full notebook full of like, here's what I'm going to create for the course. The event's over, final day, like at the bar, there's probably two guys like talking, and I walk up and we start having a conversation, and we're talking about the events and our ideas and whatnot. And I tell them about the tour hacking story, and I tell them about my course. And this was an idea that was it was a seed that was planted through some conversations that I'd had with other people at the event and conversations I had had with musicians. And the thing that everyone was the most interested in, or the thing that really kind of blew their mind, was when we talked about tour hacking, and when I shared our story with our band, about how we went from living in our van to releasing an album that hit #2 on iTunes and touring worldwide. Like, that was the thing that people were like most interested in, and that they thought was most valuable, is like understanding, like, how did you do that? And it was this conversation on that final day where I was like sharing that idea, and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of like thinking about it, and what do you guys think? And there's one guy who's like, dude, like, that is the thing. Like, that tour hacking, like, that was like so much, like, that's really interesting. If I was you, like, you don't have to do this, but if I was you, I would consider doing that. And I think he was speaking just like, I kind of knew that deep down, like I had that feeling, but I think I needed I think I needed the validation, or sort of the confirmation that, like, yeah, like that is the right choice. And that, I remember that moment specifically, because that was a moment for me that made me decide, like, yeah, I'm gonna go all in on this idea. And yeah, it's funny how those things happen in community.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And just for context for folks, so in case you are just coming into my world, product launch formula is, as I mentioned earlier, the sort of the core of the teaching, and PLF is the abbreviation. And so once a year, I do an event called PLF Live. These days it's a virtual event, but back pre-COVID, it was a big in-person event. We'd have 1,000 people or more at the event. Just an amazing 3-day immersive event. And part of it, we had this just incredible community, and sometimes folks hang out at the bar, and sometimes when you hang out at the bar, you get multi-million-dollar ideas.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, I remember meeting Will Hamilton as well at the bar.
We just recorded an episode with Will like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Cool. I remember rubbing shoulders with him, being like, dang, like, this guy is so cool. And now, like, I know him really well. I'm like, God, this guy sucks. Just kidding. He's awesome. Yeah, I love Will.
Well, you're both in Platinum Plus now, right? And the rise of your story is really impressive, from that initial stage of failed launch really of a product that really didn't resonate and wasn't the right thing to taking on, say, tour hacking, and then starting to get some of the results that you were seeking, to now being in Jeff's top tier mastermind group many years later. It's an incredible story. There's probably a lot in between there that happened. I know from what I remember, I know you started off, didn't you start working with people individually as like a coach, sort of like one-on-one, and then that just brought in some revenue, and then it was able to, from there, where did it go from there, from that like initial stage of, okay, I'm going to work with people one-on-one, and how did you kind of get to this point of, I'm scaling this to be more of a course for people, or a program, I should say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really comes down to what we were talking about throughout this conversation about like connecting with people. And it was actually a piece of advice I got from one of the coaches in Launch Club, because I was at a point where I really did need to bring in cash. Like I had, a baby on the way, like I needed to make this work and fast. And her name is Donna, and she's awesome. And this is one of those conversations that I can count these on like, two hands, like conversations that have changed my life. And that was one of them. And uh, I shared with her the place I was at, and I was really struggling, that like I needed to figure this out. And I had done this launch, it hadn't really worked, and I wasn't sure how I was going to make this work. And she suggested, have you considered offering one-on-one coaching, with any clients to get started, as a way to provide value, and also to to kind of understand people better, to kind of build those relationships. And that was something that actually helped me to kind of overcome the curse of knowledge. Because I think, again, like I was kind of disconnected. I was disconnected from what people were actually feeling and talking about, and what their needs were. Basically, what I did was, it's funny because it was like very similar to this background, but a lot less quality. I didn't have a nice camera. I started out with like a webcam, and I did what I called the tour hacking workshop. And essentially it was like PLF to a T, product launch formula. And I did a live version of it, where I think I had 5 or 6 people that attended the live workshop, and I taught the tour hacking concept. And I just thought, like, here's how you choose the right tours, here's what to say when you walk up to people, here's how to offer your CDs. And those 6 people got value from it, and they're like, oh, this is cool, like thumbs up, thank you. And I didn't have a course or anything for sale on that workshop, but what I'd said was, if you got value from this, if you're interested in potentially working together, then you can schedule a free coaching call with me. And then on that coaching call, if it looked like it was a good fit, then I would invite them to become a coaching client. That was how I started to actually schedule some of these initial sales conversations and sales/coaching conversations. Back then, I think my offer was basically like, what works for you? like please, like, let me work with you, and just like what works for you. I think some of my first coaching clients, I had done like $400 a month, I think is what it was. And there was like 2 sessions a month, which in my mind, I was like, wow, like $200 an hour, like that is awesome. And I remember booking probably like my first 10 coaching clients. I was just like through the roof. I'm like, yes, like I can see this working. And, and then it reached a point where my biggest issue was just that the time on my calendar was running out. And, the biggest issue with one-on-one coaching is just like the scalability and the fulfillment of it. Now there's some, that can be a blessing and a curse in some ways, like having that exclusivity of there's a limited amount of spots, it makes the offer more attractive. And so I had to start being more selective with who I would do the free calls with, created an application process so that they could share their music and share why they would think it's a good fit. And so it started to create a little bit more filters, just to make sure the people that I was connecting with were the ones who would get the most value from what I was offering. I'm pretty organically over the course of 6 or 7 years, like it's evolved where there came a point where I personally, my calendar was just filled up with the sessions. I couldn't grow unless I started to build a team around it. Some of my clients that I was working with who were experiencing a lot of success in their personal music career were interested in, being able to pass it forward to other artists as well. And now on our team, we have 34 coaches that are all musicians themselves who, in some cases, are our most successful case studies. One of our clients, Shane, has a $250,000 a year music business and he's also coaching other artists on how to build their music, and it's become a really awesome community that supports our music individually and also kind of pays it forward. And it all stemmed from that initial connection from like the one-on-one conversations, and it's evolved to a point of just like, I don't know, concentric circles. Like at the beginning, like you kind of have that core connection, but then like in order to scale, like you kind of have to build more scalable resources in the forms of either group coaching or trainings and courses. So it's kind of all evolved around it. But especially recently though, there's a point probably about a year and a half ago where I had completely removed myself from like the one-on-one coaching and fulfillment. And the lesson that I learned like this last year was we had another model shift where we basically decided, maybe it makes sense for me to still do one-on-one coaching with a certain level of client. For example, I don't know if Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift like wants to join Modern Musician. Okay, maybe it makes sense for me to do some like one-on-one coaching for them. So we actually just opened up a diamond level tier to our offerings that includes like one-on-one access to me personally. And we've had some really amazing leads, like household names, legacy artists that I probably shouldn't share here publicly right now yet while we're still working things through. But we've had some very high level leads that are people that are legacy artists who were very successful, #1 hits. Everyone would recognize them. That 10, 20 years later, they released a new single. Almost no one has heard it because they didn't really have the infrastructure built up from all the stuff that we're working on here with all like the cool digital marketing systems, the email list, and so we've had some very cool opportunities coming in lately around some legacy artists like that. And I think that that's a big opportunity as well to serve very successful artists and kind of help them come in to become a modern musician, to come back into the industry which has evolved.
Michael, I'm curious, would you be willing to share what like the pricing looks like for Diamond level?
So this is a totally new offer for us. And one of the best parts about having like one-on-one sales and services is that we can kind of figure it out as on a case-by-case basis. The way I looked at the Diamond Artist one is that the two options are either like with someone at that level, it actually starts to make sense to have some kind of revenue share model where it's just purely based on like, hey, based on the results that we get from this campaign, like we can figure out a win-win that way entirely. Otherwise, $9,700 a month, for like a standalone fee if they don't want any sort of revenue share model, is what we're starting it at. And of course, this would only be for someone that is a good fit for it. So like for most people, like it makes sense for them to like to start at that level. But for someone who's an established legacy artist, I think that it totally makes sense.
And I know we're sort of jumping ahead through the story, but I'd love to follow this because I'm sure that Diamond level, it's not just they get 1 or 2 one-on-one calls with you a month. I'm sure you've built out a complete package. And I know some of the people listening are going to be all about designing high ticket offers. Can you talk about like how you've thought about that Diamond level and what are some of the things that are included?
Yeah, so I want to preface this again just by saying like this is a new tier for us, and it's very much like seed launch-ish right now. So like the two like diamond level leads that we have right now is very much so like we're having conversations and we're basically articulating like what is it that we can provide that makes sense, for me personally and for our team. But what I'll say is like at the diamond level, what that looks like for us right now is there's just a different stage of artists. Like generally they're looking for more of a team to help out. And for us our Modern Musician team, we have 34 members. They're amazing. We're geeks at building digital marketing funnels and systems. And so with that level, it would include, me being like an artist success manager for the campaign itself. So I'd be really kind of the head person helping organize and run the campaign. And then it would also include more hands-on support from our team, actually helping to optimize the systems, running the campaigns for those artists. Generally, what we offer is more of a done with you approach, where our team will, we have the trainings, the resources, we have one-on-one sessions where we'll kind of help people get launched. But it's kind of up to the artist is to keep running the systems, to optimize their ads and whatnot. Whereas something like this would include a little bit more hands-on support.
And just, I'm just really interested in this. Those potential clients at that level who were like serious rock stars, maybe they didn't keep up with the modern musician marketing. With those folks, do they have much of a team? I'm sure they've got probably a manager. And
it's really interesting. I mean, the world has changed so much, in general, but like in the music industry in particular. I think that there's a new market of a lot of these very established, successful legacy artists who in some cases have been dropped by the record labels because they're not necessarily trending right now, and because there's new flashy types of artists that are getting more of the major record labels attention. And in a lot of cases with the previous model, the artist didn't necessarily have to learn how to be a marketer and how to promote their music. So in a lot of cases, these are very successful artists, had very little understanding of the actual marketing and promotion around what they were doing, how to leverage the email list. And so at least for the couple of leads that we have right now, they are in this transition from having worked with a major record label that took care of some of the marketing things to now being more fully independent, which is both a blessing and a curse in some ways. It's a blessing in the sense that you have a lot more creativity and freedom, and it's on you more to be able to promote yourself and get it out there. It's a curse in the sense that it's there's more music than ever nowadays. At the time of recording this, like a few days ago, there's a platform called udio.com that just came out. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's definitely worth checking out. It's really cool. It's a text to music generation. There's another one called Suno that's also cool, but like Udio just rocked the world. It just had its ChatGPT moment a few days ago. It's type in a few words, it'll generate like a song and it sounds good. And it's not like perfect yet. Some of the lyrics are a little bit like, it depends. Like sometimes it's just amazing and you wouldn't even know. You're like, I did not have any idea this was AI. And in some cases you're like, okay, this lyric's lame. Like I would replace this lyric. But that's anyone make amazing quality music in like a few moments. So yeah, I mean, it's evolving so fast.
And those legacy artists, I'm guessing, so this is a question, they probably don't have email lists, but they probably have social followings. They probably all have a pretty nice Instagram following just because of their past.
100%. I mean, in a lot of cases, they do have like an email list. In some cases, a very impressive email list. They just they're not using it. Like they don't really know. They haven't emailed it. They're not, they don't really.
They had a yellow legal pad at their shows that people wrote their email addresses on, and they probably never mailed them or something.
Basically, yeah, it's exactly like that. And in some cases, it's similar with their social media. Like they haven't really done a lot with it. It's not, it's something. It's just a whole world that they don't really understand. But they have these untapped resources and like assets in terms of their audience. So definitely a big opportunity there.
That untapped resources, that's a real big theme that I hit within Product Launch Formula. I believe almost all of us have untapped resources. In fact, I'm just going to say all of us do, that we haven't thought of. We just haven't thought about using them creatively or even that they exist or how they could be leveraged. And yeah, that would be super interesting working with these folks with those untapped resources. Maybe email lists, maybe cold dormant email lists, but still they've got a brand, social followings that could be moved to an email list. Yeah, super interesting.
There used to be this model of you got to get out there and get a record deal, right? And that was where your marketing came in, and they came in and helped you become famous and get fans and all that sort of thing. And so, and there's a lot of challenges working with a record label too, from what I hear in the music industry as well, around, profit sharing and where the money comes from and loans and all those sort of things, right? But what you're offering with Modern Musician is sort of like an alternative to that whole model, isn't it? As opposed to, being like, oh, we're going to help you get a record deal. No, it's like, we're going to help you build your own following and crush it as a independent artist. And so I guess my question for you now is like, is it Would you say it's easier in some ways now, or is it more challenging now for somebody who is an aspiring artist and a creative to really build their own thing as an independent, or versus what it might have been when they had to work with record labels?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of parallels right now to what's happening in the music industry with the traditional publishing industry and like authors. And there's more of a opening towards independent publishing of your materials because of the internet, because of social media, because of all the stuff that that we're talking about on all of the podcast episodes. So definitely the same thing's happening in the music industry as publishers and being able to broadcast your music. And there's both like blessings and curses that come with it, with this exponential curve in information technology, more information in general than ever. It's like, what is it, doubling every year, just the amount of information online. Music is certainly a big part of that. Now with AI generated music, you can bet that's going to explode by like 50x. So it's easier than ever to be creative, to create content, to distribute it. That creates more of a need for the ability to cut through the noise and to distinguish yourself and to figure out what makes you unique and to build real connection and community. And so I would say it's a difficult question to answer, because in some ways it's like way better, it's way easier. In some ways it's more challenging. It's just a different model. I personally think that this is like the golden age to be a musician or to be a creator, because we have access to resources and the ability to broadcast ourselves and our message in a way that it was not even close to possible 100 years ago. If you look at what the Beatles were working with, we at a home studio, like we have access to better quality recordings on our laptop, on our computer, by a factor of thousands. And so, and not just that, but it used to be that you needed to have a record label. You had a few channels of distribution. It was basically, that was it. Now it's like anyone can distribute their music to the internet and to potentially billions of people, and it's so accessible. And so, like, in a lot of ways, it's the golden age to be a creator, because you can create, because you can put it out. The biggest challenge that comes from it is learning how to distinguish yourself when there is more and more information saturation. Attention becomes more and more scarce, more and more limited. There's some people talk about the attention economy and how important it is to learn how to garner attention, in this type of environment. And our brains weren't designed to process the amount of information that's on the internet right now. It's like drinking the ocean through a straw. I have some pretty far out predictions and beliefs about like where things are headed with Neuralink brain machine interfaces, how we can kind of interconnect with this massive amount of of information. So it's not a straw, but it's we widen the bandwidth a lot. But for now, there's definitely, in my opinion, it's never been a better time to be a creative, to be a musician. But it comes with a unique host of challenges that weren't always the case. They were different challenges.
And that's not just unique to the music industry either, right? I mean, that's every industry, it feels like right now, where there's just this attention economy and so many people trying to, I mean, you've talked about this before, Jeff, but in your own feed, just seeing how many entrepreneurs are teaching people how to, launch products or start their own business online. There's just busier industries. And maybe both of you can speak to this, but how do we cut through the noise? What sort of ways do entrepreneurs leverage this to their advantage versus become lost in the crowd?
I was thinking the same thing, Chris, as Michael was talking. Everything he's talking about the music industry is the same for this industry, whatever you want to call it. I just heard it called the information space. I call it the wisdom business. Michael, you succeeded. You became a rock star. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think about, you had that Learn Piano Rockstar course, and there's so many people that can teach a piano course, but there's not nearly as many people that can teach how to be a rock star course, which is essentially what you did. But in any case, you had this great success in the music industry that is remarkable. It's just not easy. It's a tough thing. A lot of people want to be a rock star. When it was time to change your life because you had a baby on the way and you had a new marriage, and you're like, I'm not going to be traveling. Now you look to create an online business, and you again succeeded at a very high level. And like Chris was just asking, I mean, this industry is changing quite a bit. in the competitions increased, especially since COVID. Everyone realized you could have an online business, that online learning was a thing, and half those people seem like they decided to start an online business. But you're succeeding at this highest level. You just said it's easier than ever, but you need to cut through the noise. You need to understand what your gifts are and what you can bring to people. You have to build an audience. You have to build a community and connection. Those are some of the things I just scribbled down as you were speaking. You went from, I'm going to do this piano course, to I'm going to do this thing which became Modern Musician, which is coaching other musicians on how to build their career. You started off doing it one-on-one, which is a great way to start, great place to start. And you grew that to 34 coaches and a very, very significant business that's well into the 7 figures. What were some of the critical things that allowed you to make that jump in a relatively short period of time? We're talking just a few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to the core of this, like a thread that's happened through this conversation a lot too, is about connecting and understanding the needs, of our customers. I think that we, more than any other company in the market, understood the needs of our customers. We had more connection points with them. And it was a Zig Ziglar that says something along the lines of, if you help other people get what they want, then you'll get what you want too. And so I think that the way that you cut through the noise is you authentically are focused on serving the needs in the best possible way. And you talk to people and you figure out what exactly is it that would best serve their needs. And I mean, then there's a lot more to it too. Like you have to figure out how to actually deliver on like a service and a product that can actually, create that kind of impact. But I can tell you, like, Modern Musician didn't exist when I first started. So like I had to build it over time. And that didn't come from it came from those conversations that we were having with people and creating the product together. So yeah, I think the way to cut through the noise is, at least one of them is, like, you got to start by deeply connecting and understanding the people you're looking to serve and asking them, having conversations with them, and getting to the core of exactly, what is it, what is their core need? What is their core desire? What are their core frustrations and challenges? And not necessarily what do we think they are, but like actually the reality of what they are when you're talking with them. Like it's different than just pretending or imagining. Like it is powerful to like imagine, but like when you actually talk to people, like you can start to get a real sense of the reality of it. So there's that I think it came from. I think the strong strength, the strong strength. There's a double for you there. The strength of the model that we lean into, and it's similar to the model we see working best right now for our artists, is really focused on what we call the diamond offer. And the idea is like having a high end, a premium product, a premium price. So for artists, what that looks like is we call it the diamond offer. And this includes things like a fan retreat, where they actually can come spend time together with the artist and make music together. We had one of our artists, Erica Mason, who did a fan retreat, sold out of 30 spots for $2,000 a piece. And if an artist is trying to sell t-shirts for $10 or $20, it takes a lot of t-shirt sales in order to make any sort of real revenue. In terms of streams, it takes millions and millions and millions of streams, and it pays so little. It's so much harder to do that versus going deep on what's the most valuable product I could possibly create. Another example for artists is private events or private parties. We've had clients do these for $15,000 for a single event for their fans, and also just other very creative ideas. Recently, one of our clients, he has a nonprofit that they go to Africa and they host these amazing events and life-changing experiences. And during this brainstorming session, he's like, I never really had connected it, but I have this infrastructure, this network. Like I could, do this for my music as well. Like we could actually go on a trip, to Africa and make music together with, the children there, have a life-changing experience. And that could be like a diamond kind of experience. So I do think that there's something about entering the market. And I know you talk about this a ton around just like, you don't want to compete based on price, but you want to compete based on value. And I do think that that's one unique way to cut through the noise, is when you counterintuitively, like it's like the low hanging fruit analogy. Like if low hanging fruit, it seems like it's an easier thing to grab, but like there's so many people that are grabbing all the low hanging fruit. That's way more competition. Whereas if you just like really look at the high hanging fruit and the most, you know, like the most valuable things you can do, then the other benefit is it kind of gives you that purple cow effect, where it's like it's unique and it's different. It grabs attention because I don't know, every artist has a t-shirt, and it's like, okay, cool, it's a t-shirt. Not every artist is hosting an ayahuasca retreat for their fans and doing things that are like life-changing. So I do think that that's one element of how do you cut through the noise. Well, you focus on like what's the most crazy, awesome, life-changing possible experience that I could create. That's going to be attractive to someone who is like a diamond level fan, someone who they're wealthy, they have the financial resources figured out, they're just looking for like the most life-changing value, the most life-changing experience. And if they connect with an artist, then in a lot of cases, like those early adopters are the ones that help fund an artist's career early on, so that when they have millions of fans, now the streams actually start to pay a little bit. Now the t-shirts actually start to make a difference.
It's interesting, you use that phrase, the low hanging fruit, and what you said was something like, there's a lot of people going after the low hanging fruit. And if we think about it, that's true. If you think about in a market or a niche or an industry, there's going to be a lot of competition for the low hanging fruit. Conversely, when you build an audience, when you build a relationship, when you get a real connection to your community, then I think that what you call the diamond offer, the high ticket, the high end offer, actually is super low hanging fruit for you or for the artist. So if you've built that community, you've put in the hard work, you've delivered value over time, you've built up those 1,000 fans, there's going to be 10 of those fans that will go for the premium offer, for the diamond offer. Or in our world, Michael, as you know, we have what we call the Sparta launch, which is for a very, very high ticket offer. And the crazy thing is those are often, usually in my experience, the easiest sales you'll make. So instead of fighting it out trying to sell t-shirts or packs of DVDs for $25 or $50, when you put out that $10,000 or $15,000 offer that's just targeted at those 10 people, it's almost like you just have to send an email for that. So that, there's a long hanging fruit within the industry, which is like you're going to have to fight and scrap for. But when you put in the work to build that community, to build those true fans, then the low hanging fruit is often that super high ticket offer.
Yeah, that is so. I mean, and when you think about an artist, how so many artists, I think, misconstrue like, oh, I need to just get more streams, I need to get more people listening, I need to have like this huge audience to be successful. And then you hear someone like Snoop Dogg saying like, I think I got 1 billion streams and I only made like 45 grand or something like that. And it's like, wow, that's just, whereas what you just said, if you did 3 live events for $15,000 a year, you just made what you would have made in streams. And the whole shift in thinking. And I think there's so many entrepreneurs that could use that shift in thinking around, you don't need millions of people on your list to get to the point where you're successful or where you have, a 6-figure or more income in a year from what you're doing as your business. And I think that's such a crucial and awesome reframe for many entrepreneurs out there. I did want to ask about one more thing too, in relation to what you said, because we kind of passed over it as your first point, which was it has to be not only what you think their problems are, what their opportunities are, it's really got to be what they are saying about it. And you discovered a lot of that through talking with your actual niche, with doing that one-on-one. Would you recommend other people do that to figure out what are the words they're using to describe their issues and opportunity? Or are there other techniques that you use now to really hone in on that messaging for your people still?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, the short answer is like yes, and yes. Like, definitely, like that's the root of all of this. Is Zig Ziglar, give people what they want, you figure out what they want, then you give it, then you figure out how to deliver it. For me, the initial stage of like actually connecting with people face to face and having those conversations early on at least for like 10 to 20 of those conversations. It seems like that's a pretty common recommendation. That's like, if you're just getting started, it's almost always a good practice. If you're entering a new market, to actually have those conversations, there's a level of nuance and a level of just like reality that comes from the feedback you get from having those conversations. If you are doing a live stream and you can't see people's faces, then the feedback you get can be helpful from chat, from comments, but it's different from if you're looking at someone's face and you can see the parts of your story when they start to kind of nod off a bit or look away, versus like the parts where like they laugh or cry or they're emotional. There's a certain level of reality that you experience in the moment when you're actually connecting with people, that in order to have a good theoretical concept of what that reality is, like it helps to like deeply be immersed in that reality, have those conversations truly. So rather than just like talking about what an apple tastes like, you actually bite the apple, you taste it, you actually experience it. And now you can talk about an apple with more clarity because you've had the experience of like tasting the real apple. So, I mean, in short, I think having real conversations is a great place to start. And there's so many awesome tools you can use as well to sort of like analyze and look at surveys. Like surveys are an amazing resource to categorize the feedback you're getting. Like when you start having hundreds of thousands of people that, are in your community, and you need to, kind of level up in terms of how you're serving that amount of people. Utilizing surveys is a huge part of it. The shot across the bow survey that you've introduced in the product launch formula has been a game changer for us to always connect with people and get their feedback. So there are more and more survey related tools. I think the future of this industry is more and more personalization, and I think we're moving toward a point with like AI where we'll have even better personalized content. I mean, most social media algorithms, like they're designed in a way that is based on personalization. That's what's enabled them to become the number one attention garnerers in the world, is the ability of personalization. But they're all pretty siloed from each other, and a lot of them are like capturing this data in a way that isn't necessarily as transparent as it should be, debating depending on how you look at it. Like I think in a lot of cases we don't understand how much personal data is being scraped and sort of creating this persona of us. We don't actually know like what is this algorithm, like what's its intent, what is it trying to do, and in most cases designed in a way to like keep your attention on the platform. Which is that the best use of all of your personal data, is to like keep you addicted to this platform? Probably not. That being said, there's all these siloed personalities. It's like Google has their own version of Jeff and Chris and Michael. Like they have like, this is Michael according to Google. This is Michael according to Facebook. This is Michael according to TikTok. And like they all have their profile of like, this is who we think you are. But I think that we're going to move towards a world where we have more transparency around like, we know what our avatar is. Like we have like a sort of a personal avatar of our data. It knows what our goals are. It knows like what we're currently going through. And it personalizes our information stream, the data that's coming into us based on, for example, like I want to learn how to play guitar. Okay, now when I'm scrolling through a news feed, like I just so happen to see like playing guitar feeds because they're going to inspire me to learn how to play guitar. So I'm going off a little bit on a tangent here, but I think that we're moving towards a point where there's more personalization. And the reason I brought that up was because surveys are a great way to add personalization. Basically, like when you survey your audience, you understand what is it that they specifically are looking for, and there's going to be more and more niche things that evolve. One example in the music industry with Udio.com, the new AI generation, I'll tell you what I've been using it for, creating extremely niche songs that are inside jokes, like for my friends, and like specific songs I would never spend the time or energy to create. One example is we jokingly had this musical that we were like, yeah, we should like make a musical with the band about Gary Anderson, the Minnesota Vikings kicker. And it was just like a out of left field, joke. And, I plugged it in. I was like, musical about Gary Anderson, the Minnesota Vikings kicker. And it was so good. Like it just popped it out. It's like, Gary, the game depends on you. it was a whole like theatrical musical experience. And so that's just an example of like the niche, like the personalization, and like there's probably going to be more and more of that. Like, this is a course that's designed specifically for a mom who fits your exact persona, because like literally this, it's all been sort of processed in a way that makes it relevant to you based on your life and your situation.
Mm. Yeah, it's super interesting, the potential right now with AI and all of the tools, and the opportunity to really, like you said, like create something super niche very quickly with minimal effort. You think about how many niches out there are that could just potentially use music in a unique way now to stand out or to be able to speak to their audience, almost like memes, right? Used to do is you create a meme for your community and then that spreads everywhere. Well, maybe you'll be able to create a song now that spreads everywhere that's just about what you do in your niche. That's fascinating, exciting to see where it could go. I did want to talk to you about community a little bit, because you've been in our community for a while, and I think you've also built your own amazing community of musicians. What role has just being in the right community for you helped with your success and building a really successful business?
Community is like everything. It's taken me some time to like fully appreciate just like the importance of community, because it's one of those things that I think generally tends to be something that is extremely important at its core, but it's not the thing that like necessarily attracts you to a certain, like, you want a transformation, you want a thing, but then it turns out like the community was like one of the most important agents. So for example, the conversation we had earlier, there was 2 touch points that were 100% because of the community, and they were even like somewhat unrelated things, like the tour hacking conversation that I had, the decision to transition from piano rock star to modern musician and teaching the career. Like, those were facets of the community and having conversations. And those conversations wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the core intention that we were all setting together of being in this shared, culture, the shared community of being able to help each other be successful. I know personally in my own journey, discovering the community that you've built, attending PLF Live, came at a point that changed my life completely. Like, I remember before PLF Live, I always felt like I was a little bit weird because I was into self-help, personal development, and this kind of positive mindset, kinds of things. And when I first went to PLF Live, when I was in the room, first of all, you just sense like the energy, like you just could feel it. Like, there's just like a vibration to it. And everybody that I talked to was interested in entrepreneurship and personal development and self-help and growth. It's a very like positive, refreshing energy. So yeah, I think that the role of a community in a lot of cases is to help you feel like you belong, in a way, to be able to connect with other people that make the thing that you felt like you were kind of weird about to actually feel like it's a part of, of it's okay to be who you are. And I also think there's a role in communities around like specialness as well. Like, I think, Jeff, you are a master at this, at like being a champion of the people in your community and shining a light on them. And I know for me, we had accomplished some stuff with Paradise Fears, but in a lot of ways, I still felt like, I don't know, an imposter. Like, when I first started Modern Musician, I faced a lot of self-doubt around like, who am I to teach this stuff? Like, sure, we did some stuff with our band, but I was just one member of the band and I've never taught this to anybody else. And I think the role of a community and a role of like a mentor is to shine a light on you and to kind of see something in you that you might not necessarily see in yourself. So I might be conflating like community and mentorship here a little bit, but I think that they do kind of go together. And community is extremely important. Like, I think we don't exist in a vacuum. We're not truly like separate beings. Like, we're all like interconnected, and our relationships with each other they hugely influence who we become. the idea that we become like the 5 people that we spend the most of our time around. I think there's a lot of truth that we're like a sum of if you look at your top 5 people that you spend the most of your time and attention with, like you tend to become like a sum total of those 5 people together. I think there's a lot of truth to that concept. And so community is really about, creating a shared culture that it can either be a very positive community or a very negative one too. Like I know certainly when I was in some of the darker points in my life where I was in high school before I started, the band really kind of pulled me out of this. But I was going down a path at one of the stages of my life where I was starting to experiment with drugs, and I had a lot of social anxiety, and I remember, I would sneak out and like go get drunk, and I was really like hanging out with a crowd, with a community that was not a good influence, a good crowd for me to be with, and the band really kind of pulled me out of that. And so I think that community is something we should be really intentional about, and it's something that the communities that you're a part of, you want to surround yourself with people that inspire you to be a better version of yourself. And also I think for all of us as creators, we are creating our own communities as well. And your community, your customers, in some ways they tend to be a reflection of you. And there's like a fractal nature of it. There's pieces of yourself that you can start to see in the people in your community. And there's something, I don't know exactly what it is. I think we're still sort of discovering like what is consciousness and what is life, and what does this all mean? But to me, it feels like there's something magical in community itself, and that community might be all there really is. It's about like the connection between all of us.
That to use a musical term, that resonance that people feel when you're in the same room with people that you resonate with, and how much better that can sound, and how much brighter things can look when you're in the right place and with the right resonance. It's we got it. I knew we had to get some music in here.
Yep. I mean, that's I love this analogy, but when you're in the wrong community, it's like it clashes, it doesn't resonate. And it's kind of boring if it's all the exact same note, if everyone's just the exact same. It's like, okay, like that's interesting, but it's like when you like add the harmony notes and there's like they resonate together, they're different, but like there's a greater shared resonance is when it really becomes special.
Well, how do we feel about a taco break?
Well, it's funny because it sounds like much of Michael's misspent youth involved tortillas.
Yeah,
and it just seems like the time to go to tacos.
I think so too. Yeah. Well, we in this section, it's a 2-minute taco break, sometimes a little longer than 2 minutes, but we're going to go over some mild taco related questions to start that we ask everybody. And then I've created a few spicier taco related questions specifically for you in this episode. So let's start off with the ones we ask everybody. And that is hard shell or soft shell tacos, Michael?
Peanut butter doesn't go as easily with the hard shells, so I'm probably got to go with the soft shells in this case.
Great, awesome. That's definitely been the consistent winner, although I will say if you're paying attention to this season, we've had more hard shell people than ever. So our team is growing. Our community is growing.
You got to be adaptable. Yeah. That hard shell is not going to cut it these days.
Yeah.
No.
All right. Would you do a mild, medium, or spicy taco?
I like spicy. Yeah, I don't want to die, but I like some spice.
Got to get some spice in there. All right, are you guacamole or no guacamole?
Throw on the guac. Oh yeah.
Got to have the guac. I think Jeff's the only one who doesn't have the guac, but for good reason. So, if you could eat tacos with any musician in history, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh man. Right now I would probably say John Lennon, just because he's I can't actually write a song with John Lennon. Paul McCartney would be pretty sweet too, but he's alive. Maybe if Paul, if you're listening to this right now, if you submit an application for our Diamond Artist Program, then I can maybe put in a good word for for our leadership. But John Lennon, maybe at some point. I know they had the AI John Lennon.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have an answer for that one? I don't know if I've asked you that one.
It would it it would be it would be a toss up between Keith Richards and Bruce Springsteen and Joe Strummer. It's a toss up between those three.
Very cool. All right, so
all who play Telecasters, by the way. Yeah, I need to get myself a Telecaster. I don't need another guitar, but I just feel like I need a Telecaster because of
I feel like we always need another guitar. So, all right, taco stock is happening. It's like Woodstock, but with lots of tacos. What bands would need to be playing taco stock headlining for you to show up front row?
Oh man, All Time Low is going to be playing for sure. The Beatles are going to be making a comeback. Gosh, Death Cab for Cutie. They probably got to be up there. Cool. Muse,
yeah.
Muse would be a fun one. Yeah, those are just a few off the top of my head, but the more the merrier.
Yeah, of course. Well, it would be a lot of taco related bands for sure. They do that. What about you, Jeff? What would be a taco stock?
I don't know. It's funny. I just saw a show. Oh boy, I got so many. So just pulling from those, the Stones and the Clash and Springsteen. Those are, I just named those three, but there's so many more. U2. I'm an old school punk, so Sex Pistols, never had to see them. Ramones, never got to see them. Pretenders would be in there. So I'm sounding really old now. These are really old. I mean, Bob Marley for sure would be there. And I wasn't ready for this.
You probably got to throw in like the White Stripes, right?
Yeah,
right. Just for that one song, at least.
Yes, yeah. We do have a bit of a theme, a White Stripes theme song in our community. Dylan. I'm getting even older, but I mean, Green Day would be there. Rancid.
Wow.
I don't know. It'd be a big show.
I saw Green Day one time at a Salesforce conference, weirdly, and it was so rainy because it was in San Francisco that everyone was out in the field, in the baseball field, with like ponchos and stuff on, and all the people who were not diehard fans were in the far away stands. And they got 3 songs in, and somebody apparently tried to clear the water over the soundboard, and it all came down onto the soundboard and completely fried the entire thing. And so 3 songs in, they could only get 1 microphone to work. And so they did an acoustic set for like maybe 5 or 6 more songs of whatever they could do, just doing those that they could, and mostly the diehard fans singing out front. But that was a unique Green Day show. I'd love to see them when they got to do a full set. That would be really cool.
I bet Good Riddance was a pretty
it was
moment.
Yeah, honestly, like it was just that was basically what we could do, is like Good Riddance and us all singing it with them. But yeah, unique show. All right, I had to ask this one too. If you had to write a song about tacos, all right, where would you start, and how would you approach writing a song from scratch now with say all the, maybe you just plug it into AI now, I don't know, but how would you do that?
Tacos, spicy, so spicy on my tongue. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd probably start a little bit like that, but I mean, honestly, if I was actually sitting down, I wanted to write a taco song, like legit. Nowadays, I would probably jump on to ChatGPT. Say, I want to write a taco song. Give me 10 ideas for like, funny things that I could, that I include, or give me some like jumping off ideas. It would generate a bunch of cool lyric ideas. I could say like, okay, I like this one. Oh, kind of put them together. And then I would probably put it into udio.com to generate a full track around it. It would spit out like a full song. I would try to make it the genre that I want it to be, and then I would download it. I would import it into Moises AI. Moises basically separates the tracks, so you can remove the vocals from it, but keep all the drums and keyboard and instruments in it. I might replace the keyboard in it just for fun. I would probably replace the vocals in it, and I would put a stamp on it. And I would say that's my taco song.
Nice, awesome. I wanted to hear. I knew you'd incorporate some AI stuff into that, so I appreciate sharing that. That's very cool.
Some of that stuff is fresh. I mean, it was like 2 days ago that I went through that entire workflow, and I'm like, you can do that now with UDO. It's insane, like high quality. You can remove the vocals, you can add your own vocals. Like, it's gonna be a game changer for artists around the world and people who aren't traditionally. They don't think of themselves as
Yeah,
artists.
that opens up the opportunity for people who maybe don't play guitar to be able to figure out how to make something sound like it has a guitar and create something, right? So.
My son Xander and I wrote a song last night. It was about it was a Spider-Man song. It was not great. Like the lyrics we didn't give it a lot of source material. I basically asked Xander, like, what do we want to write? He's like, Spider-Man writing songs. So it was a song about Spider-Man swinging through the night, like writing, like strumming chords on his guitar. It's like it's like Nickelback style. He loves it. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
As a Canadian, I'm gonna say, yeah, go Nickelback. That's all for it. Well, that's awesome. And that was our talk break. Let's get into our final thoughts. And many of our listeners, they run their own business. Some of them are brand new, some of them are running 7-figure big businesses and have found great success, but all of them are daring to launch to the next level. And I just wanted to say, like, why should people listening dare to launch?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, I try to do this exercise somewhat regularly. I have this a daily death reminder that just says, like, you're going to die someday. And, all of us, if we're lucky enough to die a natural death, like, we're going to have this experience where we're on our deathbed, literally moments away from saying goodbye to like everything that we know and everything that we've built. And it seems like the number one thing that we hear from people who had a near-death experience, and I know personally, like going through that and really imagining, like if you put yourself in that situation, or if you imagine, like, what if you actually did have like 5 minutes left to live? It seems like for a lot of people, that's like the moment where a moment of clarity really happens. And we realize what's really important and what's not really important. And for so many of us, we let fear kind of get in the way of us really going for it. And I know I've had some great conversations with relatives and people that are, they don't have a whole lot of time left. And I've asked them, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, like going back, what would it be? And it's almost always some kind of statement of, I wish that I had just gone for it. I wish that I had just like really went all in. I wish I'd really given it a shot. And so, I think that life is too short. Like every moment is sacred. Every moment is so precious that spending time doing something that's not in alignment with who you are, or that something doesn't, bring you to life, or something that gives you passion, is just, time. It's too precious to waste. And so that would be why I think it's important to dare to launch and to put yourself out there. And you're always going to be better off. Like, you're way better off if you dare to launch and you go for it, and it doesn't work out the first time, which is, I mean, in a lot of cases, that's kind of what happens. Like your first time, you rarely are going to like step to the free throw line, your first shot, just you nailed it. It happens sometimes, but like generally it takes iteration. And you're always going to be better off having actually gone for it and dared to launch and learned from it and grown, versus just like standing at the free throw line, waiting for your shot, waiting to do it.
Well, Michael, this has been so great, and we appreciate you coming on. Where can people learn more from you? And if they are an artist, maybe procure some of your services, or if we do got someone like Taylor Swift wanting that diamond level, where can they go to talk to you about it?
So, I mean, the best place to find us is our website, Modern Musician. If you Google Modern Musician, it should come up to the top, but it's just www.modern-musician.com. And we have a bunch of resources there. We have free masterclass trainings, things that go deeper into, as a modern musician, like what are the tools and resources available to you to take your music and your passion, to get it heard by your fans, to actually build a real community, not just like numbers or vanity metrics, but like real connections with a community. And if your goal is to do it and it to pay for itself, or to actually make like a sustainable income from it, then that's something that we provide as well. And if you're Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran, definitely reach out. You can submit an application. If you make the cut, then I'll be happy to connect with you personally and to see how can we create a win-win situation to help you fully connect with your existing community.
Amazing. Amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I mean, this community has changed my life, so I'm extremely grateful. And yeah, I mean, hopefully this podcast can reach out and impact some lives as well, and provide some value. And yeah, thank you so much for everything that you do and for what you've built. And it's going to be a wild journey in the next 5 to 10 years to see what happens with technology and AI as we evolve.
Well, you're welcome. And I think that your journey in the last 5 years has already been just crazy amazing. And yeah, can't wait to see what's to come.
And we thank you, Launch family, for listening and tuning in like you always do. And we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch. Awesome. I think we got a new ending. And we're out.